Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust, and I can't believe we are already 4 weeks into our Thailand backpacking tour.
And for a 7-week tour, we haven't got a bottomless pit of cash, so we have to be really careful with our budget. But we've also got a certain level of expectation of comfort because we're in our mid-50s, and balancing those two things out isn't the easiest when it comes to budgeting. But we're going to see how we go.
So we sat down last night with my little black book and had a really good look at how the expenses were going so far, 4 weeks in. As Richard said at the beginning, we haven't got an endless pit of money to just keep spending. We think, or we know now, that we've been pretty good with what we've done so far with the money that we've got, and we thought we'd have a go at sharing it with you.
So last night we did the obvious thing and took the information from the little black book, put it onto a spreadsheet, and don't worry, because at the end of this video we know for some people it's really important to go through the devil of the detail, and Jackie is going to go through that spreadsheet with you. But in the meantime, what we want to do is to go through some of the categories of what we've spent and how much we've spent and share that with you.
So no surprises, obviously the biggest expense that we've incurred so far is to do with our accommodations, and we found it pretty easy to source accommodations. We've been using booking.com, which we've been advised by quite a few different travellers as a really good way of comparing and finding places. We've learned that you can set a filter on it, that you can say you want to look at places for £30 to start with, and we'll have a good look at what's available. Sometimes we'll then go nope, and we'll increase it to £40. So we've found ways of keeping on budget through booking.com, and we've found some fantastic places.
And it's fair to say there is a whole range of accommodation available, and we've never had a problem even booking at short notice. One of the things we have noticed, however, is that aircon tends to kick in at about £30 a night. And if you've seen one of our previous videos where we took a punt and took accommodation without air conditioning, we'll never do that again, that's for sure. So £30 gets you air conditioning, and as Jackie said, we've been sort of pushing it probably £40 for a standard night of accommodation.
We have found the accommodation does vary depending whereabouts you are in Thailand. Some of the smaller islands, particularly Koh Kradan, were more expensive, and Koh Lipe, but then that balanced out when we were on Koh Mook, where we got a really bargain accommodation for £30 a night. So it does even itself out.
And one of the things we've tried to do to help with the budget is to always try and book bed and breakfast, because that takes one meal out of the equation. And when we haven't had breakfast included, we've realised it's actually quite expensive to go out to coffee shops and try and source breakfast. So it's often easier to just try and get bed and breakfast wherever you can.
Or we have found maybe just push that budget another £10 a night, because that's what we were spending on breakfast anyway if we had to source it ourselves.
When we're away in our campervan, we rarely eat out, so it's a bit of a unique problem to have to eat out all the time. As I said earlier, we try and do bed and breakfast, so that takes breakfast out of the equation, but having to have lunch and dinners out, you've just got to be a little bit careful and think about how you keep stuff on budget.
So one of the ways we've tried to keep a little bit of control on that is to have a very light lunch. We've been going to 7-Eleven, which does things like cheese and ham toasties. Richard's got a bit accustomed to their pot noodles with some very strange flavours, and fruit from some of the local stores. But yeah, we just try and keep lunch very, very cheap.
One of the top tips for eating out in general is to try and embrace Thai cuisine, because wherever you go on the menu, the Thai food is naturally much cheaper than Western food. And if you were looking to eat a Western diet all the time, it could work out quite expensive.
It would. It's probably double. I mean, it's cheap anyway to eat here, but it is probably double the cost to eat Western food.
So to give you a really simple example, a pad thai, which is the national sort of noodle dish, that's pretty much a standard price between 80 and 100 baht in most places. And then perhaps a more expensive stir-fry dish, you're looking at maybe 180 to 200 baht. But it is really, really cheap as chips to eat out.
Things like pizzas are about 350 baht, which is just under £10.
And then on to drinking. We like a drink, but interestingly, It's so warm out here that we haven't really felt the need to drink that much alcohol that often, and we're actually going through more water and more soft drinks than I think we've ever done in our lives.
The alcohol is really cheap. It's about 70 baht for a beer, which is no more than £1.50, £2. And the cocktails are really cheap, but actually we just haven't felt like drinking. I've had one glass of wine, which by the time I ordered it, it was happy hour, and I was like, yes, it's really cheap for a nice cold white wine. When it came, it was really deep yellow. It really wasn't nice, and we've just not drank any since.
One of the great things we've found, however, is the fact that soft drinks and water, when you are eating out, are really quite cheap, and we can't quite work out why we don't have a similar system at home, because you all know if you go out to a pub it can be really expensive to just drink Coke or something like that, whereas out here it makes it really affordable.
Yeah, the Coke, it seems to be almost a standard price in all the restaurants. It's 40 baht, which is £1. So I suppose another part of our big expense, which is unavoidable because we are backpacking and touring around Thailand, is the cost of travel between the different destinations. We've got pretty savvy at using local bus transfers and the trains when we're in Bangkok, and the app 12 Go Asia, which I keep calling 12 Go Asia, but we have been corrected on that.
It's a really good, simple system where you can book transfers from anywhere, and it seems to coordinate stuff. So it will organise a minibus from the hotel to the port, and then it will organise your ferry ticket. I have absolutely no idea how it works, but it does work. And for example, to get from Hat Yai Airport across to Koh Lipe, it cost us £14 each. And for that, we had a private minibus take us from the airport on the 2-hour drive to the port, and then an hour on the speedboat. £14 a head. How that worked, I do not know, but it did.
You'll have seen that we were in Bangkok for 5 days, and it could be quite expensive to get around, but we used the SRT and the MRT trains, which were absolutely fantastic. It's their equivalent of the London Underground. The most we spent was 70 baht, which is less than £2, but most tickets were 40 baht, which is £1, to go pretty much anywhere in Bangkok.
And as you've probably seen from our videos, we're not averse to a bit of walking as well. A, it keeps us healthy, and B, I just have a general mistrust of local taxi drivers, and I don't really like getting into a cab not really knowing what the price is going to be. I know that's my issue, and we haven't experienced any problems like that, but actually, if it's only a mile, we tend to walk it.
Yeah, it is quite, particularly in Bangkok, it was quite a bartering system. You had to really try and knock them down on the cost of things. So we did avoid the tuk-tuks and taxis. Maybe we'll be braver next time we come.
And a way of keeping costs down in terms of ferry transfers, there are speedboats and there are ferries. And the ferries are slower, not massively slower, but they are considerably cheaper. And certainly as we've got further north, as there are more ferries available, we've taken them, and they are really good value and offer a considerable saving over a speedboat transfer. One of the things we really liked on certainly some of the islands was that there was a almost cooperative approach to transport. So there was a set price for tuk-tuk rides, so no matter how far you were going, the journey would only be 50 baht per person. And for me, that made me feel much more comfortable in the fact that there wasn't any competition about that, and there wasn't any bartering to do either.
Yep, you just got on the bike and you knew it was going to be 50 baht wherever you went.
And linked to the point of standardised prices, we found in some of the southern islands quite a lot of the excursions and activities had a standardised price. So snorkeling trips did not vary depending on who you went to, and that again was really quite reassuring. And when we were on some of the southern islands, we felt that we got really good value for money from the trips that we did.
Yeah, we did a really amazing snorkel trip on Koh Lipe. It was 500 baht per person, which is £12.50, and it was such good value going out on a long tail boat. Yet when we were looking at trips when we were based in Phuket, the costs had jumped to about 3,000 baht per person for a lot of the trips. They did involve speedboats and they were longer journeys, but it just seemed so much more expensive. And now we've come back up to Koh Lak. The same trips that we could have done in Phuket are half the price again. So we've opted to do a lot of the trips when we're based here.
And one of the things that we've realised is that on such a long trip, there are so many opportunities to do activities. And we've realised we can't do them all because it would cost an absolute arm and leg. And we've got to understand that, we may be coming back to Thailand for many years to come. So there are always future trips. So we've been a little bit selective about what we've chosen to do and what we've chosen to perhaps not do.
Yeah, we've been on a trip that some of our friends recommended to us to the Similan Islands. It was 2,300 baht each, so it was quite expensive for the day. I think it worked out at just over £100 for the both of us.
Yeah.
But it was just the most fantastic trip, which we will have shown in one of our previous videos. And we're going on the James Bond Island trip. So we've selected a couple that we really want to do. We did a trip to the Emerald Caves when we were based on Koh Mook that was only 300 baht each, which was just fantastic, sort of quirky long-tail boat trip into these very dark caves. So we've had a wide range of experiences with a wide range of prices.
And if you're willing to do a little bit yourself, you can find stuff. So there are so many elephant sanctuary trips that are touted out there. And in reality, we found one that was just up from the hotel. It was a mile walk and it cost us 100 baht each to get in. And then you could get a basket of food to feed the elephants in a really ethical way for 200 baht. So it was just one of the best experiences that we've had.
And it cost us hardly anything.
One of the things you do need to be aware of when you are booking these trips is that there is an added cost of national park entry fees, and that can depend on whichever national park you are wanting to get into, and sometimes it's not always that clear as to whether you are going to be charged or not, but it is an added cost that you need to be aware of.
And actually, it's an added cost in general. So when we arrived on Koh Lipe, there was a 200 baht each national park fee just to land on Koh Lipe because it's in a national park and stay there. And we found the same when we went to Koh Kradan. So that was 800 baht that we'd not really thought about. A small but necessary cost on our 7-week trip is that we've had to perhaps every week do a load of laundry. It's a bit of a minefield finding places to do it, but it varies from 40 baht per kilogram to, we've seen one at 100 baht per kilogram, but they do take your little bag of washing and it comes back 24 hours later. Sometimes even it's been ironed. Back home, we're both with EE for our phones, and most destinations that we go to, particularly in Europe and America, you can pay £25 for your roaming abroad pass and you get the same terms as your English contract. But that doesn't work in Thailand. So the first thing we had to do when we got to Bangkok was buy SIM cards each. They were the equivalent of £25 each, which gave us unlimited data, which have been absolutely fantastic. And actually they both ran out yesterday, so we've had to top them up again for another £25 each. But I think it's been really good value. It has been £100, which is quite expensive, but we are uploading all of our YouTube videos from that, and we are in constant contact with our families.
We got some fantastic advice from friends who had travelled extensively in Thailand before we came out, that in Thailand cash is king and never a true word has been spoken. You really do need to make sure that you've got a good supply of cash because everywhere works on cash. And if you're wanting to use your bank card, everywhere will look to charge you a 3 or a 4% surcharge on top of the standard price. And actually, we think that's a really good thing because it's supporting small businesses. Small businesses rely on cash and they don't want to be paying out endless fees to banks. So it actually works out really well. And we've enjoyed living in a cash culture.
Yeah, we've turned up at quite a few hotels. We'll book them on booking.com, but at the cheaper end of the hotels, you don't pay online. And when you get there, you have to pay in cash. So we have learned that if you haven't paid for your accommodation, make sure you've got lots of cash with you.
And in terms of exchanges, we've always used cash exchanges. So we brought out some clean UK currency, which they much prefer, and you get a much better exchange rate. But we have found that between the different exchange booths, there is quite a difference in exchange rate.
There have been a couple of occasions where there hasn't been a currency exchange. We've had to use ATMs to get money out, which is fine because we hadn't bought enough English money to last us forever. But we have found the ATMs really expensive. They seem to charge a standard 220 baht just for you to use the machine and change the money. And the last time we changed it, we got a really bad exchange rate as well. It was about 40 baht per pound, which is 3 baht less than most places.
So it's almost like a triple hit. So you put your card into the machine, you get hit with a charge in country, you get a really poor exchange rate from your bank at home, and then we also know that we're going to be charged for using that facility from our bank at home. So really, it's probably best, if you are feeling comfortable with it, to actually bring English currency out with you and change pound notes for Thai baht.
There are certain bank accounts, and ours isn't one of them, that probably are cheaper and easier to get currency from, but definitely not ours. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of a flavour of the kind of costs we're incurring and just how cheap actually we are finding Thailand on our backpacking trip. It's definitely opened our eyes that it is a really good, cheap alternative place to go to when our Schengen days in the van have just been wiped out.
So what we're going to do now is to cut to Jackie going through the spreadsheet, because we know from the questions that we've had on previous videos, some people really like the devil of the detail and other people may be looking to switch off now. But let's cut to the detail and see the wonders of our spreadsheet expenses.
As we said earlier, I have bought my little black book with me, which I took all the way around Europe when we were on our campervan adventures earlier in the year, and I've written down everything that we've spent, anything to do with food, all our travel, and we've split it into different areas and costs and put it into the spreadsheet. So we've got accommodation costs, eating out costs, groceries, and interestingly, the only grocery store we've come across really is the 7-Elevens, transport, which is all our speedboats and aeroplanes and trains that we've taken to get across the country, the national park fees, any trips that we've done, our laundry fees, and then sundries, which has included 2,000 baht on our phone costs, and Richard treated himself to some Crocs and some other bits of shopping that we've done. And it's really, really interesting the amount that we've spent. In our accommodation so far, in 28 nights, it's come to a total of £1,313, which sounds a lot, but when we've averaged it out, it's £46 a day. Now that is over what we thought we would budget a little bit, but it was the Bangkok hotels that cost more, and actually on the island of Koh Lipe, the accommodation was a little bit more expensive there. But we've found the more we've travelled further north, the accommodations have come down in price, so hopefully the average will come down by the end of the 7 weeks. Our eating out costs, I was really surprised how low they are. We've had 28 days on the road. Like Richard said, we've had breakfasts as much as we can included in the hotel fees, but we still had to have lunch and tea out, and we've spent £536 in 28 days, which I think is fab, and it comes to an average of £19.16 a day. Groceries bill is really cheap. Normally when we're in Europe, that's our most expensive bill because we cook in the van, but we can't cook anything here. So it's mainly soft drinks and the odd beer and crisps and some snacks and ham and cheese toasties. And the groceries have come to £119, which is an average of £4.28 a day. Our transport costs, again, we were really surprised when we looked at it over 28 days, how low those actually came out. We've been on loads of speedboats. We've flown down from Bangkok to Hat Yai. We've been on trains going all the way up to Kanchanaburi. And actually, we've only spent £376 so far to get around the country, apart from our actual flight to get to Thailand, which is an average of £13.45 a day. We've been on 3 really great trips so far. We have been on a trip to the Emerald Caves. We went on a snorkeling trip when we were on Koh Lipe, and we did the amazing Simmerland trip. And so far we've spent 7,500 baht, which is £174, and that is averaging out at £6.23 per day. And finally, our sundries have come to £102 with the little treats, most of that being on phone cards. So in total, we have spent £2,651 in 28 days for all of our food, all of our accommodation, all of our travel to get around Thailand, and any other things that we have spent along the way, such as drinks, eating out, and treating ourselves. So hopefully you found some of the detail in what we've gone through of use. It's really interesting to see how much it actually costs per day, per week, for all of the different areas. We were really surprised how cheap the eating out has been. The accommodation has come up a little bit more expensive than we thought we would, but actually we have found backpacking around Thailand a really, really good, cheap alternative to our van travel so far. We will do another video when we get home, which will go through all of the costs, including the flights and things, of how much a backpacking trip for 7 weeks has cost us. Obviously, different people will spend different amounts, that your budgets will be different, your accommodation expectations will be different. Our daughter's best friends laughed when we said that we were going to probably be spending £30 to £40. They said we'd be living like kings, and actually we felt we have been a little bit. So hopefully you found the video of use so far, and we will catch you again soon. Bye.